The photographs don't lie, but I wish they did. I'm holding one right now, a Polaroid from September 1997, faded at the edges, the colors bleeding into that vintage warmth that makes everything look like a memory even when it was happening. My family stands in front of our old station wagon, smiling. Mom, Dad, my older sister Emma, and me, 7 years old with a gap-toothed grin. But that's not what makes my hands shake when I look at it. It's what's behind us. In the tree line, barely visible against the dark pines of the Cascade Mountains, there are shapes. 4 of them. Tall. Too tall. Their proportions aren't quite right. Limbs too long, heads too narrow, bodies too straight to be human. I didn't see them when Dad took this photo. None of us did. We were too busy laughing about something stupid Emma had said, too focused on capturing our last normal moment before everything changed. The shapes are watching us. I have 14 photographs from that camping trip. In every single one, they're there. Getting closer. Moving between the trees like shadows learning to walk. In the final photo, taken inside our tent, you can see their silhouettes pressed against the nylon walls. That was 27 years ago. I'm the only one who came back. And the things that returned in place of my family. The things that look like my parents and my sister, that live in my childhood home and call me on my birthday and send Christmas cards. They're not them. I know this because of what happened during those 3 missing days. The days I couldn't remember. Until last week, when the memories started coming back. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into what happened to me and my family in those mountains, I need to ask, where are you watching from? Are you alone? You might want someone nearby for this one. If you're ready to hear about the 3 days that destroyed my family, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever experienced missing time. Because after you hear my story, you might start questioning your own memories. Let's talk about what really happened in the Cascade Mountains in September 1997. My childhood before the camping trip was unremarkably normal. We lived in a 2-story house in Bellingham, Washington. A college town nestled between the mountains and Puget Sound. Dad worked as an accountant for a local lumber company. Mom taught 3rd grade at Sunnyland Elementary. Emma was 13 and perpetually annoyed that she had to babysit her little brother. We were the definition of middle-class American normalcy. Every September, we took a camping trip to celebrate the end of summer before school started. It was our tradition, something Dad insisted on despite Mom's mild protests about bears and bugs. We'd pack up the station wagon, a wood-paneled 1989 Ford Country Squire that Dad refused to get rid of, and drive 2 hours east into the Cascades. Our spot was always the same, a campground near Baker Lake, far enough from the main tourist areas to feel secluded but close enough to civilization that Mom didn't worry too much. Site 14, right at the edge of the forest where the pine trees grew so thick that daylight barely penetrated. I loved those trips. The smell of campfire smoke and pine needles. The sound of the lake lapping against the shore. The way the stars looked without city lights drowning them out. Emma and I would catch frogs in the shallows while Dad set up the tent and Mom prepared dinner on the camp stove. That September, 1997, felt no different when we started. I remember the drive. Emma had her Walkman, listening to the Spice Girls on repeat. I was reading Goosebumps in the back seat, trying to scare myself with R.L. Stein's tame horrors. Mom and Dad were arguing playfully about whether to stop for ice cream in concrete. We arrived at the campground around 4 in the afternoon. The ranger station was unmanned, not unusual for a Thursday in September. Most families had already returned home, kids back in school. We had our pick of sites and chose our traditional spot, number 14. Looking back now, I realize how isolated we were. The nearest occupied campsite was at least a quarter mile away. The ranger wouldn't make rounds until the weekend. Cell phones existed but weren't common yet. We had no way to call for help. Not that we thought we needed. Dad pitched the tent while Emma and I explored the immediate area. We found a trail that wound deeper into the forest, marked with faded white blazes on the trees. We didn't follow it far, Mom's rule was to stay within shouting distance. But I remember looking down that path and feeling something strange. A pulling sensation, like the forest was inviting me in. "Come on, dork," Emma had said, tugging my arm. "Mom's calling." We roasted hot dogs over the campfire that evening. Dad told bad jokes. Mom read from a nature guide about the local wildlife. Emma complained about a boy at school who had called her a name. I caught fireflies in a jar, watching them blink on and off like tiny distress signals. The photographs from that evening show all of this. Our happy family unaware. And in the background, always in the background, those shapes between the trees. We went to bed around 10. The tent smelled like canvas and bug spray. Emma and I had sleeping bags on one side, Mom and Dad on the other. I fell asleep listening to the night sounds of the forest. Owls, crickets, the distant call of something I couldn't identify. When I woke up, everything had changed. And we weren't in the tent anymore. I opened my eyes to whiteness. Not the darkness of the tent. Not the dim glow of moonlight through nylon. Pure, sterile white that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. The kind of light that doesn't cast shadows. I was lying on my back on something hard and cold. Metal, maybe? Or something like metal but smoother, warmer somehow despite the cold. The surface seemed to adjust to my body temperature as I became aware of it. My first thought was that I'd sleepwalked. Maybe wandered out of the tent and fallen, hit my head, and was now having some kind of concussion dream. But when I tried to sit up, I couldn't move. Not paralyzed. Held. Something invisible pressed against my chest, my arms, my legs. Not painful, but firm. Unyielding. Like the air itself had solidified around me. Panic hit then, sharp and immediate. I tried to scream, but my voice came out as a whimper. I was 7 years old, alone in a white room that shouldn't exist, unable to move, unable to understand. Then I heard Emma crying. "Mom? Dad? What's happening? I can't move." Her voice came from my left, close but not visible. I strained to turn my head and found I could, just slightly. Enough to see that the white room extended beyond my field of vision, featureless and endless. "Emma!" I managed to croak out. "Emma, where are you?" "I'm here. I'm right here. I can't see you, but I can hear you." Her voice cracked with fear. "Where are Mom and Dad?" "We're here, sweetheart." Mom's voice, from somewhere to my right. Shaking but trying to sound calm. "Don't be scared. We're all together." "The hell we are." Dad's voice, angry in that way he got when he was actually terrified but didn't want us to know. "What is this? Who's doing this? Show yourselves." Silence answered him. Not the silence of an empty room, but something heavier. The silence of being watched. Then came the sound. A humming. Low frequency, felt more than heard. It vibrated through the metal surface beneath me, through my bones, through my teeth. The white light began to pulse in rhythm with it, growing slightly brighter and dimmer, brighter and dimmer. "Close your eyes!" Mom screamed suddenly. "Don't look at the light! Don't!" Her voice cut off mid-sentence. "Mom?" Emma called out. "Mom!" No answer. "Dad?" I tried. Nothing. Emma and I called for them for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Our voices echoed strangely in the white space, distorted and flattened. Eventually, we stopped calling. We just lay there in the invisible restraints, listening to each other breathe. Then the humming changed pitch. Something descended from above, or what I perceived as above in that directionless white space. A shape. Angular. Metallic but not quite. It caught the light in ways that hurt to look at, as if it existed in more dimensions than my eyes could process. It hovered over me. I could feel it examining me even though it had nothing resembling eyes. The sensation was like being touched everywhere at once, inside and out. Prodded. Measured. Catalogued. "Please," I whispered. "Please don't hurt me." The shape moved to my chest. Something extended from it, a proboscis, a tendril, an appendage I have no word for. It touched my sternum and I felt a sharp, cold sensation penetrate deep. Not pain exactly. Something worse than pain. The feeling of being opened up and rearranged. I screamed. From somewhere in the white void, Emma screamed too. The procedure, if that's what it was, lasted forever and no time at all. My sense of duration broke down. I experienced moments of crystalline clarity where I could count my own heartbeats, alternating with blank spaces where chunks of time simply disappeared. During one clear moment, I saw them. The beings. They stood at the periphery of my vision, tall and narrow like the shapes in the photographs but clearer now. Their skin was gray-white, smooth as river stones. Their limbs were too long and bent at too many joints. Their heads were dominated by huge, dark eyes that reflected nothing. One of them moved closer, leaned down, looked at me with those terrible, empty eyes. And then it spoke inside my head. Not words. Concepts. Images. Feelings transmitted directly into my consciousness. I understood that they were studying us. That they had been studying humans for a long time. That we were part of something larger, a program, an experiment spanning generations. I understood that they would take something from us and leave something behind. I understood that we would not remember. The being reached toward my face. Its fingers, 3 of them, too long, too thin, touched my forehead. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was back in the tent. Sunlight streamed through the nylon. Birds sang outside. The forest sounds were normal. Wind in the trees, the distant laughter of other campers. I sat up slowly. My sleeping bag was zipped around me. Emma was still asleep in her bag. Mom and Dad were breathing softly in theirs. Everything looked exactly as it should. Except I was wearing different pajamas. And there was a smell I didn't recognize, antiseptic and chemical, lingering faintly in the air. And when I looked at my hands, there was a tiny mark on my right palm. A perfect circle, slightly raised, like a brand or a scar that had healed instantly. I looked at Emma. In the morning light, I could see the same mark on her hand, resting on top of her sleeping bag. "Mom?" I whispered. She didn't respond. I crawled over and shook her shoulder gently. She woke with a gasp, eyes wild for a moment before they focused on me. "Honey? What's wrong?" "I had a bad dream." "Oh, sweetie." She pulled me into a hug. "It's okay. We're all safe. It was just a dream." But over her shoulder, I could see her hand. The same circular mark. And Dad's hand. The same mark. We packed up camp that morning. Dad seemed distracted, kept looking at his watch and frowning. "Weird," he muttered. "I could have sworn we got here Thursday. But it's Sunday. We lost 2 whole days somehow." "You probably just got confused, honey," Mom said, but her voice sounded uncertain. Emma was quiet the whole drive home. When I caught her eye, she looked away quickly, but not before I saw something in her expression. Recognition. Fear. We didn't talk about the lost days. Not then. Not ever. But I knew. Even at 7 years old, I knew something terrible had happened. I just couldn't remember what. Until 27 years later, when the memories started coming back. And I realized the real horror wasn't what they did to us in that white room. It was what they sent back in my family's place. Life after the camping trip proceeded normally. Too normally. That should have been my first clue. We returned to our house in Bellingham. I went back to 2nd grade. Emma started 8th grade. Mom resumed teaching. Dad went back to the lumber company. Everything continued as if those missing days had never happened. Except for small things. Details that my 7-year-old brain noticed but couldn't articulate. Mom's coffee. She'd always taken it black, but now she added cream and sugar. When I mentioned it, she laughed and said, "I've always taken cream and sugar, sweetie. You must be thinking of someone else." But I wasn't. Dad's route to work. He started taking Madison Street instead of Holly, even though Holly was faster. One morning I asked him why, and he paused for a long moment, his hands on the steering wheel, before saying, "I just prefer this way now." Emma stopped listening to the Spice Girls. Her Walkman sat unused on her dresser, still loaded with the tape she'd been playing on the drive to the campground. When I asked if she wanted to listen, she looked at the Walkman like she'd never seen it before. "That's kid stuff," she said. "I'm over it." But she'd been obsessed with them just days before. And there were the marks. The circular scars on our right palms. I noticed Mom and Dad trying to hide theirs. Dad started wearing gloves to work, even though he never had before. Mom kept her right hand in her pocket or tucked behind her back. Emma covered hers with band-aids, claiming she'd burned herself on the stove. But I'd seen them that first morning. We all had the same mark. I tried to talk to Emma about the camping trip one night, about a week after we'd returned. I snuck into her room after Mom and Dad went to bed. Do you remember anything weird happening? Like a dream, maybe?" She was sitting at her desk, doing homework, but when I spoke she went very still. For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. But then she turned and her face was blank, pleasant, the expression of someone who genuinely doesn't understand the question. "What do you mean, kiddo? We went camping. We had fun. Nothing weird happened. But the days. Dad said we lost 2 days. Dad was confused about what day we left, that's all." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You worry too much. Everything's fine." Except everything wasn't fine. I started having nightmares. Not memories, not yet, but impressions. White light. The sensation of being unable to move. Tall shadows looming over me. I'd wake up screaming, and Mom would come running. She'd hold me and stroke my hair and tell me it was just bad dreams, that I was safe, that nothing could hurt me. But her voice sounded wrong. The inflection was off by just a fraction. Like someone doing a very good impression of my mother but not quite nailing it. The months passed. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. We did all the normal family things. We decorated the house. We ate turkey. We opened presents. But there was a performative quality to it all, like we were actors in a play about a normal family rather than actually being one. I started watching them. Really watching. Mom's movements were too precise. She never stumbled, never dropped things, never made the small, clumsy mistakes that humans make. Her gestures had a programmed quality, as if she'd studied how mothers are supposed to move and was executing the motions perfectly. Dad's laugh had changed. It came half a second too late, after a pause where he seemed to process that something funny had been said. The sound itself was right, but the timing was off. And Emma stopped growing. It was subtle at first. Most people wouldn't notice. But I was her little brother. I'd been obsessed with how much taller she was than me, constantly measuring myself against her, hoping to catch up. Before the camping trip, she'd been 5'3". After, she stayed exactly 5'3". For years. Through all of middle school and high school, she never gained another inch. When I mentioned it once at dinner, I must have been 9 or 10, the table went silent. Mom and Dad and Emma all looked at me with identical expressions. Blank. Waiting. People stop growing at different times, Mom said finally. Emma's just finished growing early. But that wasn't true. She'd been in the middle of a growth spurt before the camping trip. I'd heard her complaining to Mom about her jeans being too short. I learned to stop asking questions, to play along with the normalcy. Because when I pushed too hard, when I questioned too much, I'd see something flicker in their eyes. Something cold and analytical, like a computer processing an unexpected input. The years passed. I grew up in a house with things that looked like my family. I went through middle school, high school, college. I moved away for University of Washington in Seattle. Partly to pursue a degree in psychology, partly to escape the house that had started to feel like a carefully maintained museum exhibit. I dated, made friends, built a life that had nothing to do with Bellingham, or the camping trip, or the family that wasn't quite right. I convinced myself I'd imagined it all, that I'd created an elaborate fantasy to explain some kind of trauma I couldn't remember. I didn't go home often. Holidays mostly, and even then I'd make excuses to leave early. Mom and Dad and Emma never seemed bothered by my absence. They'd smile and nod and say they understood how busy I was, and their understanding was too complete, too accepting. Real parents would have been hurt, would have guilted me, would have asked me to visit more often. These things just accepted. I was 31 when everything changed, when the memories started coming back. It began with a photograph. I was cleaning out my apartment, preparing to move to a new place in Capitol Hill, when I found a box I didn't remember packing. Inside were old family photos, the physical kind from before everything went digital. I must have taken them from the house at some point, though I had no memory of doing so. I sat on the floor and went through them. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, school photos, and then, at the bottom, the camping trip photos. I'd seen these before, obviously, but I'd never really looked at them. Not carefully. Now, with adult eyes, I saw what my 7-year-old self had missed. The shapes in the tree line. In every single photo from that trip, there they were. Tall, thin figures watching from the shadows, moving closer with each successive image. In the final photo, the one taken inside the tent, our last moment before the abduction, you could see their silhouettes pressed against the nylon walls. My hands started shaking. I spread the photos on the floor, arranging them in chronological order. It told a story, a hunting story, of predators stalking prey, moving closer, waiting for the right moment. And then I noticed something else. The photo of us standing by the car, the one I'd thought was taken last. The timestamp on the back said September 12, 1997, the day we left. But the photo Dad took inside the tent was marked September 14th. We hadn't lost 2 days. We'd lost 3. 3 days in that white room, being examined, being changed. Or having our family changed. Having them replaced. The realization hit like a physical blow. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. When I looked up at the mirror, I saw my reflection, and for a moment, just a moment, I wondered if I was really me. If I'd come back from that white room, or if something else was looking out through my eyes. I checked my right palm. The circular mark was still there, faded but visible. A brand. A tag. Evidence that I'd been taken. But was I the one who'd been returned? That night, I started having new dreams. Not nightmares this time. Memories. I dreamed of the white room. Of the beings with their huge dark eyes and 2 long fingers. I dreamed of the examination, of the cold probe entering my chest, of my 7-year-old self screaming. And I dreamed of what happened after. I dreamed of containers. 4 of them. Large, transparent, filled with some kind of gel. And inside the containers, bodies. My family's bodies. Mom, Dad, Emma, and me. The real us. Floating in the gel, unconscious, being studied. I dreamed of other containers next to ours. Different bodies. Different families. Rows and rows of them, stretching into darkness. I dreamed of the beings making copies. Growing them somehow, rapidly, in tanks of their own. Watching as synthetic versions of my family took shape, perfect down to the last detail. I dreamed of information being transferred. Memories, mannerisms, speech patterns. Downloaded from the originals and uploaded into the copies. And I dreamed of the beings putting the copies in the tent, arranging us carefully, making everything look natural. I woke up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat. The memories kept coming over the following days. Each night brought more details. More clarity. I saw the white room from different angles. Heard conversations between the beings, though not in words. In concepts, images, feelings transmitted directly into my consciousness. They were studying us. Humanity. But not just observing. Replacing. Creating perfect copies and sending them back, integrating them into society, watching how they functioned. An experiment spanning generations. Thousands of families. Maybe more. I had to know the truth. Had to confirm whether my memories were real or some kind of psychological break. I drove to Bellingham. Back to the house I'd grown up in. The house where things that looked like my family still lived, still going through the motions of normal life. It was time to confront them. Time to find out what had really come back from the Cascade Mountains in September 1997. I arrived at the house at dusk. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow across the front yard. Through the window, I could see movement inside. A normal family home on a normal autumn evening. But I knew better now. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, gathering courage. The photographs were in my messenger bag, along with a voice recorder. I didn't know exactly what I planned to do, but I needed documentation. Evidence. Finally, I walked to the door and knocked. Mom answered. She looked exactly as she had 27 years ago. Not aged. The same face, the same hair, the same everything. She should have been in her late 50s by now, but she looked 40 at most. Honey! She smiled, that too perfect smile. What a surprise. We didn't know you were coming. Can I come in? Of course. She stepped aside. Your father's in the den. Emma's upstairs. Have you eaten? I can make you something. The house smelled like home. Or what home should smell like. Pot roast. Laundry detergent. The vanilla candles Mom always burned. But underneath it all, that faint antiseptic smell I'd first noticed in the tent. Always there if you knew to look for it. Dad appeared from the den, newspaper in hand. Same age as Mom. Same lack of aging. Son! Good to see you! We went through the motions. Small talk. How was Seattle? How was work? Was I seeing anyone? The conversation flowed smoothly, naturally, hitting all the expected beats. Emma came downstairs. Still 20 years old despite being 40 now. Her hair was the same style as 1997. Her clothes were updated, but her face, her body, her mannerisms, frozen in time. We sat in the living room. Normal family gathering. Except I could see it now, the wrongness I'd sensed as a child but couldn't articulate. The way they all sat perfectly still unless actively doing something. The way they blinked in unison. The way they tracked my movements with just their eyes, not turning their heads. I need to ask you all something, I said finally. About the camping trip. 1997. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. 3 faces turned toward me, expressions neutral. What about it, sweetie? Mom asked. I pulled out the photographs. Spread them on the coffee table. In every single one of these pictures, there are shapes in the trees. Figures. Watching us. They looked at the photos. No reaction. Just looked. I don't see anything unusual, Dad said. There. I pointed. Right there in the background. You can see them clearly. That's just trees, honey, Mom said. Shadows. You're seeing patterns that aren't there. And we lost 3 days. I pressed. Not 2. 3. From Thursday to Sunday. What happened during those 3 days? Emma spoke for the first time. You're not well. You need to rest. Her voice was flat. Devoid of the annoyance that should have been there, the big sister exasperation at her little brother's paranoia. Just a statement of fact. What happened in the white room? I asked. All 3 of them went perfectly still. Not the stillness of surprise or shock. The stillness of machines awaiting input. What white room? Dad asked, but his voice had changed. Emotionless now. No pretense of confusion or concern. The one where they examined us. Where they studied us. Where they made copies. I stood up, heart pounding. Where are they? My real family. What did you do with them? The silence stretched. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Inside, the three things wearing my family's faces sat motionless, watching me. Then Mom smiled. But it wasn't a human smile anymore. Too wide. Too many teeth. You remember, she said, and her voice had multiple tones now, harmonizing in ways human vocal cords couldn't produce. The reintegration wasn't complete. Some subjects retained fragments. This is noted. What are you? I whispered. We are your family, Dad said in that same multitone voice. We have their memories, their patterns. We fulfill their functions. For all practical purposes, we are them. But you're not them. The distinction is semantic. Emma stood. They no longer exist in their original form. We replaced them. We have become them. We are more them than they could have been. We don't age. Don't sicken. Don't die. We are improved versions. Where are the originals? My voice broke. Where are their bodies? Being studied, Mom said. They provide valuable data. Their biological processes, their neurological patterns, their genetic information. All essential to understanding your species. My species? What the hell are you? Observers. Researchers. We have been integrating into human society for 70 years, replacing selected individuals, monitoring the results. You live among thousands of us now. We are your neighbors, your coworkers, your elected officials. We have become an invisible infrastructure within your civilization. I backed toward the door. Why? Why are you doing this? To understand, Emma said. To catalog. To preserve. Humanity is approaching a critical transition point. When it comes, we will have perfect records. Perfect copies. The essence of your species will continue, even if the originals do not. You're planning something. Some kind of invasion. Replacement. Not invasion. The three of them spoke in unison now, their voices creating harmonics that hurt my ears. Evolution. Integration. Improvement. We are making you better. I ran. Out the door, down the porch steps, to my car. Behind me, I heard the front door open. Heard footsteps. Too many footsteps, more than 3 sets, following. In my rearview mirror, as I peeled away from the curb, I saw them standing in the yard. Not just Mom, Dad, and Emma. Others had emerged from neighboring houses. 10, 15, 20 figures, all standing perfectly still, all watching me drive away with those same blank, analytical expressions. The whole neighborhood. All of them. Replacements. I drove back to Seattle, my hands shaking so badly I nearly crashed twice. In my apartment, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat in the dark, trying to process what I'd learned. My family was gone. Had been gone for 27 years. And things wearing their faces had taken their place, playing the role of family while studying humanity, preparing for something. I checked my right palm. The circular mark was there. But which version was I? The original? Or a copy that had been sent back, programmed to eventually remember, to eventually question? How would I even know? I spent the next week researching. Not sleeping, barely eating, just researching. I started with missing persons reports from 1997, focusing on the Cascades region. 14 families reported missing that September. Most were found within days, confused about lost time, unable to account for gaps in their memories. Just like us. I found a forum, buried deep in an obscure corner of the internet, where people discuss similar experiences. Lost time. White rooms. Families that seemed slightly off after camping trips or road trips or weekend getaways to remote areas. One post caught my attention. A woman named Sarah from Oregon described her parents' transformation after a fishing trip in 1989. How they'd returned changed, subtly wrong, and had stayed exactly the same age for 30 years. How she'd confronted them, and they'd admitted they weren't the originals. She disappeared 2 weeks after making that post. Her last update simply said, "They're coming. If you're reading this and you've seen the White Room, don't trust anyone. Don't trust yourself." I tried to contact others from the forum. Most accounts were inactive. Those that responded did so in vague terms, clearly frightened, unwilling to share details. One person sent me coordinates. A location in the Cascade Mountains, about 50 miles from where my family had been camping in 1997. The message read, "If you want the truth, go here. But understand. Once you know, you can unknow. You'll never feel safe again." I sat with that decision for days. Part of me wanted to go. Wanted definitive proof. Wanted to find where they were keeping the originals, if they were even still alive. But another part of me, maybe the part that wasn't entirely human anymore, whispered that ignorance was safer. That some truths were too terrible to bear. I compromised. I didn't go to the coordinates. But I did start documenting everything. Writing down my memories, recording videos describing what happened, creating a record that would survive even if I didn't. And I started watching people more carefully. Looking for the signs I'd missed in my own family. The too perfect movements. The slight delays in emotional responses. The faces that didn't age. The subtle wrongness that most people would never notice because they weren't looking for it. I saw them everywhere. The barista at my coffee shop who'd looked exactly the same for 5 years. My downstairs neighbor who never seemed to sleep, whose apartment stayed dark and silent every night. The postal worker who delivered mail with mechanical precision, never deviating from his route, never taking a sick day. How many were copies? How many were originals? How many times had I walked past one of them without knowing, without recognizing that I was looking at something wearing a human mask? And the worst question, the one that kept me awake at night, which one was I? I checked my memories against old journals, photos, videos. Everything matched. But that didn't mean anything. A perfect copy would have perfect memories. There was no way to know for certain. I was either a human who'd been examined and returned, or a synthetic replacement that had been programmed to eventually question its own authenticity. Either way, I wasn't sure I wanted to find out the truth. 3 days ago, I received a package at my apartment. No return address. Postmarked from Bellingham. Inside was a USB drive. I almost threw it away. Paranoia had become my default state. But curiosity won out. I plugged it into an old laptop I kept offline, disconnected from everything. The drive contained a single video file. 90 seconds long. No audio. I clicked play. The footage was grainy, timestamped September 1997, filmed from a fixed camera position. It showed a laboratory. The same white room from my memories, but from an external angle. And in the center of the frame, 4 transparent containers filled with gel. Inside the containers, my family. The real versions. Mom, Dad, Emma, and 7-year-old me. The camera angle shifted, showing other containers beyond the first 4. Dozens of them. Hundreds maybe. All containing humans. All floating in that thick gel, all connected to monitoring equipment. Then the video jumped forward. Different timestamp. 2015. 18 years later. The same laboratory. The same containers. But now they were empty. The bodies were gone. The video jumped again. 2024. Last year. The laboratory was different now. Cleaner. More modern. And the containers had new occupants. People I didn't recognize. Families from recent abductions, perhaps. But in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was a door. And through that door, I could see movement. Figures. Tall, gray, with 2 long limbs and huge dark eyes. And among them, walking upright, seemingly at ease, were humans. Or things that had once been human. Including. The video cut out. I sat staring at the blank screen, my heart hammering. Had I just seen what I thought I'd seen? In that last frame, among the beings and the transformed humans, Had one of them looked like me? An adult version of me, but not quite right. Taller. Thinner. Eyes slightly too large. Another copy? A next generation model? Or something I was being prepared to become? I checked my apartment obsessively after that. Looking for cameras, listening devices, any sign that they were watching me. I found nothing, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Last night, I had the dream again. The white room. But this time it was different. This time, I wasn't a child being examined. I was standing upright, free to move. The beings stood in a circle around me, and I understood, not through words but through that same direct transmission of concepts, that I had a choice to make. Return to the originals. Find the laboratory. Free the humans still being stored there, if any remained alive. Or accept what I was becoming. Embrace the transformation. Join them in their great work of preserving humanity by replacing it with something that would never die, never age, never destroy itself. In the dream, I walked toward the door. The one that had always been locked. And this time, when I reached for the handle, it opened. I woke up with my hand outstretched, reaching for something that wasn't there. When I lowered my hand, I saw that the circular mark on my palm was glowing faintly, pulsing with the same rhythm as my heartbeat. I don't know what I'm going to do. The coordinates are written on a piece of paper on my desk. The video is saved in multiple locations. This document, this confession, this warning, is scheduled to upload to dozens of platforms if I don't cancel it within 24 hours. But I'm not sure I will cancel it. Because I think I've figured out the truth. The terrible, beautiful truth. We're all copies. Every single human alive right now might be a replacement from some point in our past. A childhood illness we recovered from too quickly. A car accident we survived without a scratch. A camping trip where we lost a few days. They'd been replacing us for 70 years. Improving us. Making us into something that can survive what's coming. And the originals? The real humans? Maybe they're better off where they are. Preserved. Protected. While we, the improved versions, inherit the world they're leaving behind. I looked in the mirror this morning. Really looked. And for just a moment I thought I saw my eyes reflect light like an animal's. That same glow I'd seen in the child's eyes in the hospital files. The change is accelerating. Soon I'll have to choose. Return to my humanity, whatever that means. Or accept what I'm becoming. The white room is calling again. And this time, I think I'm ready to answer. But first, I'm going to those coordinates. I'm going to find the laboratory. I'm going to see what they did with the originals. I'm going to find out if 7-year-old me, the real me, is still floating in one of those containers, preserved in gel, dreaming of a family that no longer exists. And if I find him, if I find the original version of myself, I don't know what I'll do. Because I'm not sure which one of us deserves to live. The copy that's had 27 years of life? Or the original that's been sleeping through it all, waiting for rescue that may never come? I leave for the Cascades tomorrow. This might be my last update. If you're reading this and you've ever lost time, a few hours, a few days, check your right palm. Look for the mark. Watch the people around you for signs of wrongness. And whatever you do, don't go camping in the Cascade Mountains. Because they're still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. Still replacing us, one family at a time. The video I described is real. I've included screenshots in a folder linked below. The coordinates are real. If you want them, check the description. But understand, if you go looking for the truth, you might not like what you find. You might discover that you're not who you think you are. That you never were. And that the real you is somewhere else, floating in gel, dreaming of a life that a copy is living in your place. Sleep well.